And thank you for staying with us. Let's quickly go to what we know so far. It's important before we sit and have a conversation because we need to put it in context. One of the few things you will notice is how much exactly do we owe WABCO. Now, we know that if you go back, according to sources that spoke to us last week, 2 months ago it was 13 million USD, and then we're talking about 20. In fact, some put it at 23 million USD. So that's where it is, thereabout. And if you put it in the context of the big picture of what we owe energy sector generally, it's a pretty tiny drop in a mighty ocean, but it's still important enough for WABCO to decide to turn off the valve and cause challenges with the supply. Now, the GMPC reaction is the very latest one, and that is a very strongly worded statement. You rarely see GMPC issue a statement, but they have done so. They say you can't hold us responsible for what happened, and they say that because they claim that this is down to ECG. The ECG, they believe, they are the end where they actually sell the power to us, and we pay them. If ECG collects, ECG can then pay GMPC, and then GMPC can pay WABCO, because there is an agreement. The agreement that WABCO has is with GMPC, but it's ECG that collects. And they say they've been writing to the ECG for quite a while. And ECG, for some reason, they say, in fact, they are very specific about the time frame they've been doing it. Between the period of July and October, in particular, they have consistently alerted ECG to honor its overdue payments. And they say they've done that to no avail. And so you cannot blame them. In fact, they even escalated it. And they give us a time frame for this, that as late as 16th of October, they had actually, since they didn't hear from the ECG, they decided to go to the energy minister himself. And on the 16th of October, they wrote to the energy minister, and they asked the energy minister to urgently intervene in the matter and avoid the power supply challenges. So this is something new was coming. ECG, they claim, was not responsive, and so they went to the energy minister on the 16th of October and told the energy minister that ECG has failed, so step in. And they wanted an emergency intervention. That didn't happen. And so what happened? We saw that last week, Thursday, power was curtailed by WABCO, which is why GMPC says you slept in darkness last week. And this really isn't their fault. But if you put this in the big picture of what we are talking about, the power is back on, but can we sustain this over time? That's a big question. In fact, the IMF has been engaging this question with our government, trying to restructure the energy sector because of the ballooning debt. It's also weighing heavily on the economy, and it's a place we need to look at. The key question that remains is, the lights are back on, but at what cost, and can we sustain that? My guest is with me, and we're going to have a conversation with that. Now that we have a picture from GMPC, and everybody blamed GMPC last week, GMPC says, it's not my fault, it's GMPC's fault. In fact, to some extent, it's even the Energy Ministry's fault because they simply refused or did not simply respond to our call for them to intervene. Okay, so is that the truth? Let's get into that after this. PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Alumo bitters experience greatness in every moment. Ghana AIDS Commission as well. And Syntex Tank, no matter your water needs, they make sure that your water is kept in the way that you can access anytime you want. And it's the first to introduce a double layer tank. And now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex Tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. And we now introduce you to the customer specs order, which lets you order any color and size of preference. Syntex Tanks gives you the longest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you in Ghana. So whatever your water consumption, size of project or demand, choose Syntex Tanks. We have agents nationwide. Call them on 0244 335 168 or shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex Tanks are strong, are tough. Joining me in the studio is Samuel Dubik Mahama. He's the managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana. We're also joining us on Zoom is Nana Amoisi, who is Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security, and John Jinapo is a ranking member on the Mines Energy Committee of Parliament. And Mr. Dubik, let me start from that statement that was issued by GMPC today. The GMPC says, essentially, it is your fault that they told you July to October that you have to pay what you owe, so they can also settle WABCO. Is that the truth?
What I know is that within the value chain, we are all supposed to work together. When I read their statement, it saddens me because this is not something I was expecting, because I felt the problem had been resolved and everybody was moving forward. And both GridCo and ourselves had issued a statement to that effect. So it was neither here nor there, and I don't see the reason why they should have even issued this statement in the first place. But that being said, we work with something called the cash waterfall mechanism in distributing the resources under the collections that we make in a month. The new cash waterfall provides for Tier 1 and Tier 2. So Tier 1 is the IPPs. And I must say, for 4 months now, ECG has been paying the IPPs, and ECG hasn't failed. It has been constant with its monies to the IPPs, and you can check with all of them.
So this will be post the negotiation?
Exactly. Conversations concerning WABCO and GMPC, this is not the first time ECG has had to step in and bail, GNPC out concerning WABCO. Earlier on in the year, if you quite remember, the same time we were having these conversations with the IPP shutdown, the Friday that they gave us to the next day, when they didn't shut down, the next day WABCO had taken the gas. ECG stepped in again and provided some good amount of money for WABCO to, to turn back its operations. We managed it in such a way that nobody even felt it. Now, fast forward to this. I remember receiving letters from them concerning the payments, and you haven't given us what is due us under cash waterfall. Every single person or every single entity under cash waterfall complains about not getting enough. But if you clearly see, their bill is in USD. When cash waterfall is doing its denominations, it's in Ghana City. So GNPC, clearly, there's a plan for GNPC to make up whichever shortfall it is. Now, again, legally, ECG has no contract with WABCO. So the CWM is a suggestive approach to making sure that GNPC gets something on a monthly basis, or even let's say on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, to pay these bills. What is sad in this press release is that they failed to mention what ECG did for them when this thing came up.
What did you do for them?
I don't want to sit, I'm not one to blame. I work with the tools that have been given to me. That's why I feel very sad and disheartened that this statement came out in the first place, because I don't know what purpose it's supposed to serve. Gas in Ghana, ECG sells electricity. We don't even know quality of gas or whatever. Ours is electricity. Every PPA we sign when we agree on the price in cents, it has a fuel component in it. The fuel is always a pass-through because now we give them gas from our fields. So this whole conversation has nothing to even do with the availability of gas, but more so the transportation of the said gas from the western corridor to the eastern corridor. That was the reverse flow. That's the reverse flow. That is the reason why we are where we are. So if even for argument's sake, if this is what GNPC has written, fine, so be it. That is, it's ECG's fault.
Now, do you accept it's your fault?
Honestly, I don't. I don't, because if we have agreed to something that legally is not on us, then to what end? But we agreed to CWM because we wanted an equitable share of the money that ECG collects on a now is monthly, on a monthly basis. Now, another thing is there's a fundamental flaw in everything that we are doing now, because now we have data. From digitizing brings you a lot of data that you now have to wrap your head around it. The power, electricity sales is seasonal. There's a downtime. And the downtime is when the weather is cold. When the weather is cold, people do not consume. And the weather has been cold for how many months now?
Just in that you're selling less power now.
Exactly.
So you're making less money.
Exactly.
Does that explain why you've been unable to pay and make contributions?
I'm about to land the point very well, so that we'll build on that. So if that's the case, that people are consuming less, and that because now with any day that there's rainfall, we have a shortage of almost about 20 to between 30 to 20 million Ghana cedis in a day. So anytime I see rain, I get sad.
Because you're not getting money.
We are not going to get money. So what then happens to our obligations? But this is the case. We planned all year round with the same tariff. In certain parts of the world, the tariff is not flat. When it's cold, it varies. Heat comes to replace what? They find a way to balance it out. But we have a tariff that runs all year. It never conceptualized or took into play the down periods. And call it global, whatever, but now it's showing its effects in what's happening with the Volta River. So clearly, consumption is less, so collections are what? On the consumption is on the low side. So whatever we are collecting now is actually going to be what? Not going to be adequate enough to cover the shortfall within this period. But
give me some specifics so that we go. Before the rainy season setting, how much were you making in a day?
So before the rainy season set in, ECG was averaging between 40 to 50 million a day.
Now?
Now ECG, any single day you see rain, note that we are down by easy 25 million.
40 to 60 a day before the rain.
Yeah.
You're down by $25 million.
When I see rain.
Isn't that an exaggeration? That sounds to me like a very high number.
So you see, it's about how people live, how buildings are constructed. But I wish we were in my office for me to pull it up for you. That has been what we ourselves as a company were actually grappling with, the fact that this is what we are seeing, until we did a deep dive to actually identify this. Because with most people, they are comfortable the way as soon as they feel the natural air blowing, that's it. They are not going to consume, because everybody is actually on the path of conservation.
Admittedly, I use the fan now because...
See? So you are making us lose money.
So you're losing 25 million cedis
yes.
a day now because of the weather. Okay. So how does that translate into this problem?
So if we are not collecting enough, that means your share of CWM will be what? Will be less. Okay? So if your share of CWM is less, that means you as a company also has to prepare for some of your obligations. When I say we all work in the value chain and we have to complement each other, I mean we have to complement each other. These problems do not have to get to where they are. They get to where they are because what? We don't work together. I have decided that in this job, I will always tell everybody the truth. Because the good people of Ghana have assisted me in turning things around at ECG. The staff of ECG have assisted me. The board, including the Minister for Energy and the Minister for Finance. So for me, I will never have an opportunity where I will paint the wrong picture, because it will come back to bite me. So if you've written such a statement, at the end of the day, when WABCO was writing, WABCO never wrote to ECG. Did they?
But let's clarify this. WABCO says, GMPC actually says, they explored every avenue possible to get ECG to honor the overdue payments to no avail. And this is documented in numerous letters to ECG and to the Minister for Energy. Is that the case, though? That he didn't even respond to the letters to you to say, we have a problem, come and pay?
I received a letter. There was 1 or 2 people in GMPC that I spoke to. I've had chats with people in GMPC concerning the issue. So they cannot say they didn't hear from me. But Evans, this is me. My point is this. I don't want to dwell on the lapses that led to it. More so, how are we dealing with the problem now for us to move forward? Because I believe if we want to work together, we'll work together.
And I have a question on this. Because you've explained the losses you're currently having to take, the 25 million, did you explain this to GMPC when they kept writing to you and say, come and make the payments?
I don't want to drop names, but the person in GMPC I was speaking to has a fair idea of what ECG is having to deal with. And I must say on authority that this is the first time in ECG's history that ECG has been very, very transparent with everybody. ECG is being audited per the new IMF agreement to make sure that ECG is doing the right thing. ECG has a single settlement account, so there's transparency as to what is happening. And as I'm speaking to you even today, I had a letter from PURC. They did a bid to finalize the new audit firm that's going to be taking care of this moving forward, because we were dealing with KPMG, which is fine, so that there's this autonomy about what is happening in the account.
The cash waterfall.
The cash waterfall account, because there's this notion of maybe someone is under declaring, or I don't understand. So
you expected GMPC, because they have access to the account, to know that the inflows had reduced?
Of course. But
that was an expectation.
But it's not an expectation, because I said, when you write someone a letter, when you wrote the letter, it triggered me to call for someone to try to get in touch. The MD was not in town. So I got someone who was given to me to speak to. You understand? We've been talking back and forth. Even as at last Friday, this was the same person I was on the phone with when ECG doled out cash to pay for this said bill, and GMPC also brought a top-up.
How much did you give them on Friday?
We gave, we gave GMPC 60, we paid WABCO 60 million Ghana cedis.
60 million Ghana cedis?
Yes.
The bill is just over 20 million.
But in their letter, they said if you give them $8-something million, they will restore. So we provided 60 and 60 million. 60. And they provided something to the tune of about $2 million to complement what we provided, and we settled the bill. These are not things we should be sitting on national TV discussing.
So GMPC also gave part of the money.
But who paid the lion's share?
It did.
So if you had we do not need to talk about these things. These things are so petty that we should be talking to straighten these things out as and when they come up.
Okay.
Because WABCO doesn't even live on. My entire problem with this, which I felt we should be looking at as a whole, as a nation, is why an entity like WABCO that government has shares in, and as you were doing your presentation, you said, when you look at the price, the amount involved is so little that you would hold a company...
Compared to the debt in the sector.
debt itself, yeah, you hold us to ransom. What everybody else is not looking at is the cost of unsold energy. That is what ECG is looking at.
I want you to take a pause, because that will take us to the big picture, and I will come there, because that for me is a fundamental question that we need to be asking. Yeah, the lights are on now, but there are big questions still to answer. And I want to bring in Mr. Jinapo. Mr. Jinapo, so we're learning a bit more about what really happened in the background, because this GMPC statement, it's highly unusual, but at least it gave us a bit of an opening into what was happening in the background. Now we've heard the side of the ECG. You've heard them too. Where do you stand on this?
Thank you very much. I'm very, very worried. And anybody who is in this sector listening to both ECG and GMPC ought to be very, very, very worried. We are talking of gas supplied. As the ECG MD was speaking, I quickly went to the Energy Commission's document. In 2021, total system Ghana's peak in megawatts was 3,246. I can give you what was purchased in gigawatts. He said that they got a daily sale of about 45 million. And then in the rainy season, it dropped to 25 million. It dropped by 25 million.
Yeah.
That cannot be possible. That cannot be possible. That our load dropped by more than half because of the rains.
Your load is money.
Well, that's the clarity.
The load,
he's talking about money there. So the 25 million CDs.
The money is contingent on consumption.
No,
money is revenue. Revenue is price times commodity. Your revenue is a function of the price times your quantity. And that quantity here in the energy sector is the gigawatt hours that you consume. So your collection is dependent on the consumption. And that consumption is the gigawatt hours of energy consumed. And I'm telling you that no matter the situation, the gigawatt hours of energy consumed or megawatt energy consumed cannot drop by more than 50%. And I have the Energy Commission document here. And I can give you the source 2022 energy statistics from the Energy Commission. You can check both peak, average, and the lowest demand. And I'm telling you that it cannot drop by more than 50%. These are facts. These are not opinion. Let's put that aside. The issue of WABCO has to do with the gas transmitted through the pipeline. So let's even assume that what my good friend is saying is true, that you consume less. It means you pay less. It's as simple as that. It's not a fixed amount. What you pay to WABCO is contingent on the amount of gas that goes through the pipeline. So if you are consuming less energy, it means that less gas will go through the pipeline for energy consumption. This is basic. It's straightforward. Now let me give you this document. Just a moment. I have pulled something out. Evans, kindly indulge me here, because I just want to deal with the facts.
Yeah, I mean, whilst you look for that.
Okay. The PIAC report of 2022, the full year report. According to GMPC, total outstanding receivables from GNGC, that is Ghana Gas Company Limited, with respect to raw gas supplied, amounted to $650 million at the end of 2022. That is where the problem is coming from. If you have an outstanding debt of over 600 million, based on gas supplied, this is gas that has been consumed. And based on what he's saying, gas is a pass-through. So when ECG collects, the cash waterfall mechanism ought to transmit that money back to GMPC so that GMPC can pay WABCO. If that money does not go to GMPC, there's no way GMPC can pay WABCO. And so GMPC's statement, unfortunate as it might sound, which signifies that there's a lack of cohesion, there's a lack of coordination, and that even when GMPC writes letters, they do not get response. It tells you where the problem is coming from, that the whole sector is in a difficult state, and that even common communication is a major problem. The cash waterfall mechanism is as good as the money that comes in. And I'm surprised that there is this so-called tier 1 and tier 2. What this government has done is to introduce a new line. That's not what we envisaged with cash waterfall. Cash waterfall meant that everybody will get something. Now they've introduced what they call tier 1, which is the IPPs. They pay the IPPs first, and then the rest give everybody something small.
But it's important to prioritize, I mean, in the midst of the crisis that we're facing, isn't it?
That is where the problem is, and that's why we are in doomsday. Prioritize, pay the IPPs, don't pay WABCO, and WABCO will shut the pipeline, and the IPPs will not function, because that gas is the oxygen for the IPPs. So if you satisfy the IPPs and you leave WABCO the way you left them, no matter how small you think that amount is, that small amount can disrupt the whole system. And that is why we're losing 850 megawatts. So it tells you that the way and manner in which the cash waterfall mechanism was structured is inappropriate, is ineffective, and it does not resolve the problem. I have the latest report from ECG, which is confirmed by the 2022 energy statistics from the Energy Commission. The losses is moved from 21% in 2016.
Is it commercial or technical, or both?
Both. ATCC, aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses. And I'm talking of the aggregate losses, which is what we call the ATCC. It's moved from 21 to 31%. I'm told that under my friend Dubik's era, there's been some improvement. I'm waiting for the figures. But I'm saying that based on the latest figures before us, which was presented to us in Koforidua, I think in March 2023, the losses is going to about 31%. So every 100 CD that you sell, 31 CD cannot be accounted for. So even if ECG were to collect about less than 70%, there's still a shortfall. The other one has to do with the PURC itself. And that's what my brother talked about, seasonality and its charge. Either you adjust for seasonality or you strike an average that can account for the seasonality. There are two ways of tariff adjustment. You account for seasonality or you don't account for seasonality, but then you factor in a K factor that assumes the seasonality. So that even if you are paying the same amount, at the end of the day, it's about what you collect. That has not been accounted for by PURC. Even ECG were to collect 100%, they cannot still pay for all the pass-through figures. And he will confirm to you, even if they collect 100%, because the exchange rate has worsened, and yet the incremental rate has been very, very low. And instead of government stepping in to cushion ECG to deal with the differential, government has decided that it won't do that.
Yeah, and the IMF program alone makes it impossible, because, in fact, they even have to remove all manner of subsidies that is already in the system. But stay with me. I'll bring in the Amoisi quickly, but I want to get you to
the very last point. I beg you.
Yes.
Just one quick point.
Yes, John.
Let me quote the Seaboard report, gas for power generation in 2022. In 2022, a total of 107 BCF of gas was exported for power generation. This exceeds the contractual volume. So what the Seaboard, and the Seaboard report, I would recommend everybody to read it. The commitment is 154 standard cubic feet. We are doing 210 standard cubic feet. So when it comes to the gas sector, this issue of paying for gas that is not consumed is out. In fact, we are consuming way and above the contractual volume. The only problem is that we are not paying for that money. And that is where the problem is coming from.
Yeah, and generally, our inability to pay has been an issue for a while. It's not a seasonal problem. It's just that we just can't pay. Is it right to say that even the seasonal question that you raise can't be accurate?
There's a fundamental point. You know, John rarely praises me. So whenever he praises me, I'll run with it to the bank. He knows that. For him to say the losses have been good to some extent, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And then also, the part where he said, if we take 100%, yes, Forex alone will not allow us to be able to, as he said, he's right on those 2 points. The only thing I would like to ask him to shift a little bit on is the part on what we collect when it rains. Because when it rains, it's not that the consumption is not there, but how to collect efficiently, people paying, and actually operations, it happens our operations to even send people out to make sure that things are met right for them to pay. Meter reading will go down. A whole lot of operational issues arise when we have rain.
No, but you need to clarify that, because earlier the categorical pronouncement was on consumption fall. So that leads to the revenue shortfall of 25 million cedis.
So when we talk about that, it's not about what has been. There is a drop. The moment it is cold, there is a drop in consumption, but it's the drop in collection is not the same as the drop in in consumption.
Which is the biggest factor?
The biggest factor for me,
million CD loss.
Because the truth of the matter is, whatever you've consumed, I'll collect it down the line. But today, I may not be able to collect that 25 today. Or if that 25 has dropped by, let's say, even 20%, I'm just telling you that my customers, when it rains, they don't pay.
But that's a significant departure from the point you made earlier. Because the point you made earlier anchored this 25 million CD shortfall on reduction in consumption. So
when you asked him about losses, you see he broke down the losses to you in two sets. When you talk about a loss, maybe the way I put it made it come out that way. But when I'm talking about my collections are cash received, as he explained. So if I have sold 30 boxes and a few people are supposed to make 40 million out of those 30 boxes, and because of the rain, people are consuming, maybe the collections that we had to do on that same day, we were not able to do because you have to send people out, you have to remind people because of our nature. So I'm not able to perform.
But that, I find that very difficult to accept, because obviously because of how automated the system is.
Believe you me.
Under your leadership, we've automated a lot of things.
I am telling you the gospel truth, that in as much as we've automated, we have a cultural belonging where it's like the housemaster and the boarding student. If you don't have someone in front of somebody waving something at the person, threatening that they are going to cut their source of livelihood, trust me.
But that's down to what? Rains? So your officers aren't willing to go out in the rain?
This is Ghana. Evans.
To the point where it's costing you 25 million cedis.
If you over-trivialize the matter.
No, I mean, it's just...
But that is the fact. That is the fact. Who would go out in the rain? It is Ghana that we are in.
But considering where we are...
But because the job involves a lot of legwork.
That is almost admitting that the ECG is failing to get its own people, because of rain, to forgo 25 million cedis when you needed the most to pay WABCO, so our lives are wrong.
The truth of the matter is, if I don't get that money today, and I'm telling you, and I keep explaining it to you, it's not, I don't get it today, so this month will be less. But guess what? That same money, I will get it down the line. It's money that you've kicked down, it's a can of money that you've kicked down there.
The MPC says July to October. That's a long time for you to...
July what?
But they didn't specify the period. July to October is when they've been telling you to pay.
I'm telling you on authority that whatever was due them within that period, with all the conversations, that's why I said, and to some extent, it's difficult to talk about why this statement even came out in the first place, because of the communications that have gone on in the back. I didn't come here to justify anybody's statement. I came here to put the facts on the table, because these facts are facts that are affecting how the company called ECG operates, what it is making, what it is not making, what is hampering its operations, and how we need to close the gap. But that being said, from what he has also pointed out to you, no matter what we do, if we can collect 100%, there will still be a shortfall. Government has to prepare.
Why is that though?
There will be a shortfall because of the forex. The foreign exchange shortfalls are there, and then also the seasonal issue. He gave you the point on how to calculate seasonal, how to PRC needs to strike an average and all of that to make sure that the seasonal gap is closed. But for where I sit right now, when I became MD, nobody ever spoke to me about seasonal. It was through research and it was through data I identified the seasonal problem. As to how the seasonal problem shocks our ability, that is what I am saying now. That's another conversation for our entire operational turnaround.
Yeah, but this seasonal problem, which is causing you, it's such a serious problem, and it's down to two things you said. One, less consumption, and two, your inability to step in the ring to collect.
That is true, and I want to further break it down for you. At this point, it's raining. Consumption has gone down. Let's say consumption even went down by 25%. Okay? Let's say ECG staff also going out to assist or whatever are not able to go out on that said day.
But I find it incredible.
But have you seen the amount of rain that has been coming down?
Yes, but when,
so would you send Evans, the amount of rain we are talking about, we are not talking about only Accra. ECG, when you talk about ECG, you are talking about ECG global. So in the western region, who are you going to send? Where the rains, you can't even Axim, all those places, how are you going to send people out to collect the money? So you send them out and then later you are hit with something else about, let's not over trivialize this matter.
No, I mean, it's serious. It's such a serious
matter. When it rains in the country that we are in, we have that problem.
It's serious.
There's no two ways about that.
It's serious because of just the sheer amount is costing ECG and the ability to.
But it's a reality. But I'm saying it's not revenue that is lost. I just said that. It's not money that is lost.
It's can you kick down the line?
Because that money you will definitely collect it back.
But it's serious because it's costing us blackouts such as we've seen.
It's not costing us blackouts. I don't think that is what cost us the blackout. That's what I'm saying.
What cost us the blackout?
What cost us the blackout is, as he said, I pointed out to you, it's about all of us in the value chain working together.
Okay, so that value chain is broken?
It's not broken.
But you're not working together.
It's not broken. I opened up by saying that we just need to work together. Okay. That I opened my statement by saying that we need to work together. So even in his letter where he dropped the ball at the step of the energy minister, I felt it was not necessary. Yeah. You are in charge of an institution. I am in charge of an institution. You don't see me calling saying you that my tools that have been given to me have been given the West.
Yes, they actually called out the energy minister.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's even wrong. Why are you calling?
Why is it wrong?
He's a policy director. He's not in operations.
But to be fair to GMPC though, they said they only went to the minister directly on the 16th of October after they had failed to get you to make the payment. So they had to escalate it.
So first things first. Again, devil's advocate. If you had gone to see the minister, they're going to see the minister on the 16th. I don't want to go ahead to say something that I don't want to say, but
they've already put out the information. They've already put out the facts, according to them, with dates.
So you went to see the energy minister. After you saw the energy minister, what then happened between GMPC and WABCO? Did GMPC and WABCO see ECG together? Simple. But you are looking for a bailout for WABCO.
But they've written the letter to you already.
So, and I had told you I had engaged them. But so if you're not getting your desired results, what do?
What should they have done?
Did they engage me with WABCO? Because on the very first time...
What difference would that
make? The difference is that the very first time...
You owe them.
Evans, the very first time this thing happened and WABCO took it off, when they engaged me and WABCO, asked them what happened. It didn't get to this.
Okay.
So you use the first formula you used that worked for you. Don't go doing something contrary and expecting a different result. When the first approach, when you approached me, brought the desired results and nobody felt whatever, you don't go back and use a different approach expecting a different result. Okay. And then you're trying to blame it on who? The minister, ECG. Honestly, I feel it's neither here nor there.
I will want to return to the big question of how do we ensure we don't return to this? And I think that's also your main focus. And I want to bring in Nana Moisi now. And I'll come to you, Mr. Jinapo. I know you have a lot to say, but let me bring in Nana Moisi, who has been quietly listening to this. Nana, we've learned a lot tonight about what happened and the challenge that the sector is facing, and the challenge with the sector and seasonality, and how much you're losing. Having heard everybody, where do you stand? I know you have a lot of sources. First of all, help me try to balance who is really telling us and giving us a true picture here. Please unmute for me.
Good evening to you, to your viewers as well. In fact, Evans, I'm struggling to wrap my head around what Engineer Mahama is trying to convey to Ghanaians this evening. And I think he's exaggerating, and he's not really putting the record straight. I was thinking that you rather have come to tell us their challenges and cut our support as consumers and Ghanaians. But to say, let me start from his point, is say that the current challenge we had nothing to do with availability of gas. In fact, gas was not available to the power producers because the transporter is not moving the gas. So it's still a question of availability to the generators. That's one. And to say that, to blame the challenge on seasonality, look, I think they should rather thank God for this equation or variable of seasonality. Because one, if we give you more, let's say 1,500 megawatts, you lose 31% of this. And so thank God that you have less to sell, and so you have less to account for. It should rather be a service to you. And to come and say that when it's rain, it's difficult for my men to work. That is probably trying to say that if you have snow in Ghana, then of course we cannot collect our cash at all. We are forgetting, or is forgetting, that section of this revenue is already paid for because of prepaid consumers. So how many men do you have to deploy to go and collect this cash? To the extent that you say when it's rain, you lose more than half of your revenue. Come on. I'd rather ask engineer to direct some of the concern to consumers like us, particularly those who steal power and still expect ECG to function the same. I think you would direct it to governments and their handlers to invest more into the grid system or the distribution system to reduce the losses, and also to migrate from the postpaid, move all the price to prepaid so that you have less work to do and you can even have your money in advance.
And I bet on that point that ECG will have more, in terms of percentage, more customers on prepaid than postpaid now. You still have more?
No, it's less. They're actually almost
what percentage of your...
It's almost 50-50.
Almost 50-50. Okay. Yeah, then I'm with you.
Evans, I also think that our communication within the power sector must be streamlined. You don't know who is accountable to the consumer. And power goes out. At one point, you hear ECG sending, a communique or an information out. Then, of course, you see GridCo coming in as well. Then today we have GMPC. Who should we listen to? Who must communicate to the consumer? I think that it is the responsibility of the distributor.
And then before I need to bring him because Mr. Dubi, he has an emergency, needs to go. But let me come to you. I'll come to both him and Jinapo with a wrap up there. But on the subject of the big picture, though, tell me, what's the plan? Because the lights are on now, but how confident are you and what assurance do you have? Because you collect and you pay. And from what GMP says, if you don't collect, they can't pay. That will not return to this point.
First things first, I'd like to say there is no doom so. As I said, we're promising to work better. We are going to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
How?
Because we've put in the right mechanisms, and very soon with the arrangement we have, we are going to pay off. We are going to pay off our exposure to WABCO.
How much is left now of the 23 million?
I'm hoping that by the end of this week it will be zero.
So as we speak tonight, how much?
Yeah, as we speak tonight, I think they've received more than $8 million. So hopefully by the end of the week, it will be zero. And when it's zero, we are coming up with a sustainable plan on how we are going to be making our payments to them on a regular monthly basis.
Why are you finding the $12 million to pay in a week?
Are we not working? You see...
But the seasonality challenge.
So let me explain something to you. Why everybody would find what I am saying to be absurd. I myself, sometimes, when the whole thing started, I found it to be absurd. And I appreciate Nana when he says I should have been talking about my operational, but I felt today is not an issue. And I said I should be courting to get help. Today is not the issue for that. Today is about confidence building. Today is about letting everybody know that doomsday is not happening. We are not going to have doomsday. I'm very, very confident about that with what we have put in place and the conversations that were had this afternoon amongst all of us.
What conversations and how
we made sure that we are all working together. We are going to streamline the process. And with debt, nobody is expecting you to pay everything all. It's about how you sustain the debt for the person. How you make your regular payments is what is going to give confidence to your development partner to be able to close the gap as quickly as possible. For me, what hurt me in all of this was the cost of unsold energy. Because in everything you do, if you still want to get paid, by taking away the power, nobody is going to consume.
By cost of unsold energy, what you mean is when the valves were turned off, the blackout that we suffered, you could not sell power during that period.
So how do you expect? So
how much loss did you make in that period?
I don't want to speculate because now when I talk, if I don't talk well, they'll say I'm over-exaggerating because that's what the conversation
facts are facts.
That's what the conversation has gotten to. But facts are facts.
Yeah.
And I say it again.
During the blackout?
I'll calculate it and bring it back to you. I just want to be honest with you about that because I don't have that figure offhand. I want to be straightforward and honest with you. When consumption, like every process that you have, they produced the consumption, they got it. People's consumption reduced. What we were supposed to collect is not always commensurate with your consumption. Because listen to this. People consume a certain amount. What we even collect on what has already been consumed, there are losses on it. So that should even tell you that from the analysis Nana made, to some extent, it has some amount of truth, but it is not the same because what we gave out, the balance, it's a process. It's money that you will get it because of operational constraints, but if you put the right measures in place, you can close the gap quickly. Yes, when it rains, we have those challenges, but that not to say that is the end of the world because operationally, one of the things that he also needs to know is that we've even found a way to work on a live line without turning off the area to the power to the area. So the live line work is going on now for us to make sure that, because back in the day, when in a certain area, if you're about to what do you call it? If you're about to work on the distribution transformer, what do? You shut down the whole area. That's also cost of unsold energy. So all of these are things that operationally, but in my heart of heart, sitting here, I felt it was not about ECG's operational turnaround. ECG is not the child on the block today. It's about making sure that the conversation is put out there that doomsday is not going to happen.
The assurance is by the end of the week,
WABCO's bill should be zero.
Zero. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Junapo.
WABCO is the tip of the iceberg. WABCO is not the problem. If 20 million can plunge the whole nation into massive load shed with a deficit of 850 megawatts, that should tell you we have a major problem. Look, as we speak, the World Bank LC has been overdrawn by $340 million. That becomes a debt for Ghana. Apart from that, the amount owed to ENI Vitol is $172 million. When you put the two together, you have a debt of $512 million. That is where the problem is. It's a value chain. You see, the energy sector ought to be looked at from a holistic point of view. When you pick just segments and try to address it, another problem would arise.
And to that question, the question I asked at the beginning, so the lights are on since Sunday. Is that sustainable?
You've asked the best question ever. You are looking at sustainability. Are we going to have this again? Let's even assume you've paid WABCO all their money. Does that resolve the problem? The answer is no. Because the raw gas that you are consuming, you are building huge areas, over 500 million. So if you can't deal with 20 million, then how do you deal with 500 million? And the issue of seasonality, that is a lag. And in energy economics, a lag automatically levels out over a period of time when you do a time series analysis. Because let's assume you didn't collect it in October, this October. By January, you should collect that money. We are talking of a problem that's persisted from January till date. So seasonality cannot be the issue. Seasonality simply means that there are peaks and downs, which is the variation. But when you level it out, you have a zero sum. Because you get higher here, you get lower, you put it together, it levels out. If it levels out, you pay the people the arrears. So if from January to date, you're not able to pay, there's a major, major problem.
Mr. Jinapo, bullet for me. What for you is the solution now?
The first solution is if I were a minister and GNPC wrote to me, I would stop every activity and call an emergency meeting. And that for me is the key issue.
And in that emergency meeting, what solutions will you provide? Because I just need to wrap up.
I bring GNPC, I bring GridCo, I bring WABCO, I bring ECG. The first thing is that I tell WABCO that the situation has been escalated to the level of ministerial level. So please don't shut the pipeline. Give me some time as minister. I then form a technical committee and tax both ECG, GNPC, and possibly involve the Ministry of Finance, whether they can give us a bailout in the meantime. Because like Dubik said, when you lose power for one day, it's a service. It's a huge cost to the economy. It becomes a bill for you to pay, and it becomes a double whammy. So I'm surprised that GNPC wrote to the minister, and the minister did not act on that. That's where the problem is, because that is the essence of the ministry. The ministry's work is to coordinate.
And the energy sector debt generally, you agree with the plan as specified in the IMF program to restructure the entire sector? Or you think there's another solution?
The solution are in twofold. If you don't deal with the economy and your CD keeps plummeting, you simply cannot resolve this problem.
Yeah.
Because about 80% of the cost is dollar denominated. And so when your CD is falling by about 40%, no matter the program the Ministry of Energy puts in place, it will not work.
Yeah, Mr. Jinapo, I'll just need to wrap up here and give a quick 30 seconds to Mr. Amoisi. Bullet for me your solution.
I'm okay.
Yeah, bullet for me your solution, Mr. Amoisi.
I will first say that the power outage that occurred because of 20 million debt is just a wake-up call for the entire sector. That is one. Number two.
Oh, I lost him there. Like the picture has frozen. Well, that's the Amoisi there with us.